So after yesterday's rather interesting activities in Parliament, many votes on amendments, and, well, apparently now there is a majority that could in fact vote through the Prime Minister's deal provided the backstop is removed, I will address all of this, along with Prime Minister's questions, tonight at 9:30pm GMT over on the Cthulhu-Kin and Friends show, link to the channel in the description. Now the subject of today's video is one of those really dark ones, and it gets right under my skin. Mostly because this person was training to be put in a position of trust. By violating the trust, the parents of the children that have been affected by this individual are in a very odd position, because they now have to learn again to trust people to look after their kids. There are many parents that don't trust their children to be with anyone else. They don't let them have sleepovers. They don't leave them unattended. They're not the attachment parent type, although that's a different thing entirely. They're not free-range either, obviously, but they are very much aware that there is a growing discomfort when it comes to letting strangers, or even people you trust, look after your kids, because more and more stories like what we are about to cover crop up, and when they crop up, they scare people, and rightly so. I have a sister, 3 sisters no less, all of them have children. Not one of them will allow any of their children to have sleepovers at someone else's home. With them, yes, they don't see the contradiction, but mostly because a lot of the parents for the children that come and stay with them are junkies. They don't trust them to look after their own children, so they let the children come to them, as opposed to staying with the junkie. Now granted, under those circumstances, it's more because they don't trust drug addicts. But what we're going to talk about, which is why I guess it's a bit more of a false equivalence, involves somebody who has taken advantage of a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old for sexual gratification. This is Sophie Elms. She's now 18, so let's put her on blast. Sophie Elms abused 2 girls, one aged 2 years old and the other 3. Now when she was 17, this is when it all happened. She was prosecuted for a total of 6 offences, 2 of them involving statutory rape and the other 2 for sharing indecent photographs of children with a sex offender that she'd met on the internet. Sophie Elms here was sentenced to 7 years and 10 months for admitting a total of 16 separate charges. Many of you are undoubtedly thinking to yourself, how on earth did she get such a lenient sentence? We will look at the law and the sentencing guidelines from the Crown Prosecution Services soon. For now though, I want to moan a bit, because this is a damning statement. She'll be out in 3.5 years, maybe 4, because that's how it goes. Usually when it comes to lenient sentences, the typical excuse given is, she has a mental disorder. We had a case in America where a female teacher had sex with one of her pupils. She lost her license to teach, she was made to sign the sex offenders register, lost her job, but was then allowed to have her license back. Or how about Stephanie Pettersson, who at the age of 27 was jailed for just 3 years for raping a 14-year-old student. The articles related also having sex with? No, it's rape. Again, this is another story from America, but there is one from the UK. I'm going to reference that now as well. And there's a reason I'm mentioning teachers when it comes to Sophie Elms, and we will get to that soon enough, as well as the sentencing and law. So to be more relevant to the United Kingdom, we have Suzanne Harrison, who committed a number of sexual offences against a 15-year-old girl while teaching at an Essex school between December 2005 and 2006. Now she was arrested in 2011, and after appearing in Ipswich Crown Court, was detained under the Mental Health Act, and then just banned from teaching indefinitely. Now as far as I'm concerned, once you cross the line and violate that level of trust and violate somebody who is not of age, you go to prison for the rest of your life. And if you have a mental issue, then we'll treat it. But your options for release should be very minimal. Someone's going to take that as, ooh, time to do a response video to Omegon because he doesn't have time for sex offenders. I know. But as far as I'm concerned, these people are in a position of trust. They have violated that trust. And with female teachers especially, mental issues is typically the scapegoat that ends up with them getting a lenient sentence. Now for Sophie Elms, she worked at a local nursery in Swindon, but none of the alleged offences, she's been convicted, are said to have happened at the facility itself. Now she went and committed the offences after David Gearing, a sex offender, contacted the teen online and incited her to abuse them and send him pictures. You could now say David Gearing is mostly to blame for what has happened, and I would say no. The moment he reached out to her, she should have gone to the police. Straight away. Elms was left in charge of children, and then she took advantage of them for him, who he himself, in 2018, was sentenced to 15 years in jail for child sex offences. The prosecutor, Hannah Squire, said Miss Elms started out with innocuous photos of the two children, that is, fully clothed, sent to David Gearing, but this soon moved on to pictures of the children naked, and images of Miss Elms touching the children, which to an extent were requested by David Gearing. I would argue if the reason he was sentenced to 15 years is for the crime related to those pictures, then she should also receive the same sentence, as that is only fair. Again, I stand by the notion that she could have gone to the police. But as the article will say, Sophie Elms herself said she liked talking to him, and she herself had low confidence and he made her feel good. Sophie Elms' lawyer, Chris Smith, said that his client had been groomed from the age of 13 by 4 separate males. At least 2 of them have been prosecuted. So she quite likes the whole Stockholm Syndrome thing. Right. To me that's still not a valid excuse. Following the sentencing, Detective Inspector Simon Child said, "Understandably this case has shocked the local community as well as those further afield. Elms is just 18 years old, making her one of the youngest women in the country to be convicted of these types of offences, and at the time of committing these atrocious crimes, she was studying childcare with a long-term aim of working with very young children in the future. Well, isn't it great she'll never be able to work around kids ever again? More than likely never have a job ever again." I noted in the article it pointed out that she had been made to perform sexual acts from the age of 13 in front of a webcam for men, and I do feel a small shred of guilt for her being made to feel that she had to do that, being groomed the way she had. However, she had a choice in this case, and she chose the man over the children. As far as I'm concerned, there is no forgiveness for that. Now, as she has been charged with sexual assault, I think we can definitely consider the rape and sentencing guidelines from the CPS. Starting points would include 10 years custody for a victim under the age of 13. Well, there are 2 victims, therefore, that's 20 years. 2 lives, 2 sentences as far as I'm concerned. There is a list of aggravating factors, but I think 20 years for an 18-year-old who, while they have been through something, made a conscientious choice to do the wrong thing. Why do I have the Right Choice Ranch stuck in my head? I might go and watch My Name is Earl after this. In the sentencing guidelines, you also have the mitigating factors. I would like to see the defence try and use reasonable belief. You have dangerous offenders, and a rather large segment on sex offences prevention orders, which are quite common. Now, since all of this has happened, the parents have put out a statement and also indicated that due to the fact that they cannot leave their children alone anymore because the children themselves are still experiencing trauma, understandably so, they will be leaving Swindon and moving abroad. This is to negate the risk of them bumping into this trashy bint at any point in the near future. Now, with all that we know about what has happened and the sentencing guidelines for it, I'm sure there are going to be some that tell me in the comments below maybe it should be the 13-year one because of aggravating factors. You may actually have a valid point. Others will say she deserves a second chance. Others will say, well, let's nitpick at the legal aspect and say 8 years is correct. Well, close to 8 years. That's fine. By all means, let me know in the comments below what you think the sentence should have been, if you believe it to be different to what she was given. Now, if I don't see any of you tonight on the Cthulhu-Kin and Friends show, I hope you all have a lovely Wednesday the 30th of January, and thank you all for listening.